Okay, so get ready for this one because today we're diving into something pretty wild.
Oh, I'm intrigued already.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about justice, ectoplasm,
Yeah.
and the immortal spirit. It's going to be a fascinating ride.
Sounds like it.
And to help us navigate this pretty complex world, we have a very special guest today.
Oh, this is going to be good.
So we have Paolo. Now, Paolo is not just any guest. He's an oncologist,
Impressive.
a surgeon,
Even more impressive.
and a professional dancer.
Okay, now that's a combination I've never heard of before.
Right. Like, how do you even fit all of that into one life?
I know. I can barely keep up with my laundry, let alone 3 demanding careers.
And on top of all that, this guy has written 10, count them, 10 books in only 11 years.
No way. This guy's a machine.
I know, right? Clearly someone who knows how to get things done.
Yeah, talk about making the most of your time.
Exactly. And his journey into writing, well, it's a story in itself.
Oh, do tell.
Okay, so picture this. It all starts in this, like, kind of chaotic office. This office belonged to a doctor who had passed away,
Okay.
and this doctor had left behind a mountain of research.
I see.
But here's the thing. This research is all at this spiritual center called Lar de Fray Luis.
Lar de Fray Luis. Now that name rings a bell.
You know it.
Yeah, isn't that the place known for like mediumship and all sorts of intense spiritual stuff?
Got it. They're really into studying ectoplasmic phenomena.
Right, ectoplasm, the stuff that supposedly mediums can like exteriorize during a trance, kind of a physical manifestation of spiritual energy.
Exactly. It's wild, right?
Yeah, it definitely stretches the boundaries of what most people consider normal.
Totally. But that's what makes this deep dive so exciting, right?
Mhm.
We're exploring these ideas that challenge our conventional understanding of reality.
I'm all for pushing boundaries and getting those brain cells firing.
Me too. Okay, so back to Paolo in this chaotic office.
Right.
So he's tasked with going through this mountain of research, trying to make sense of it all for this doctor's 10th book.
Wow, 10 books already, and they wanted him to write another one? That's dedication.
Right. So he walks into this office, and it's like a whirlwind of papers and research just scattered everywhere.
I can picture it now, like something out of a detective movie.
Totally. And Paulo dives headfirst into this chaotic mess of information.
Makes sense. He had a big job ahead of him.
Yeah, and as he's reading through everything, something really strange happens.
Ooh, here comes the spooky part.
Well, not spooky exactly, but definitely strange. He completely loses track of time.
Like time just slipped away from him.
Yeah, he was so engrossed in the material, hours just vanished. He was completely absorbed in what he was reading.
I've had that happen before, but usually with a really good book, not someone else's research notes.
Right. It's
But
like falling down a rabbit hole of fascinating information.
Totally. And in this case, it's a rabbit hole that leads to some pretty mind-blowing discoveries.
You got it. And that was just the beginning of Paulo's journey.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, yeah. This is just the tip of the iceberg. So after this whole lost time in the office experience, Paulo gets involved in this case with a woman named Donna Ioli.
Donna Ioli. Okay.
Oh.
What happened to her?
Well, she needed surgery.
Makes sense, given that Paulo's a surgeon.
Exactly. But here's the twist. She was also receiving spiritual treatment at, you guessed it, Lar de Fray Luis.
Ah, so we're back to the spiritual center, I see. Makes sense. It was in the doctor's research, so there's got to be a connection there.
You're catching on quick. So they tell Paulo that before he operates, he needs to wait because a spirit doctor named Xiao Pedro is going to be performing surgery on Don Aioli during a materialization session.
Hold on, a spirit surgery.
That's what I thought too. Like, are they serious?
So they told him to just, like, hold off and see what happens.
Yep, they actually said hold off on the physical surgery for now.
Wow. I mean, I'm all for exploring alternative medicine, but this is next level.
Right. Talk about a leap of faith.
Huge leap. Okay, so what happened next? Did they actually go through with this spirit surgery?
They did. A few days later, they gave Paulo the green light to do the physical surgery.
So Joao Pedro had already done his part spiritually.
Apparently so. But then, during another materialization session, something even crazier happens.
Okay, now I'm really on the edge of my seat.
This highly evolved spirit, Fray Luis, who they believe is in direct contact with the consciousness of Jesus, starts communicating through this thing called direct voice phenomena.
Direct voice phenomena. Is that like where spirits talk directly through objects?
Yeah, you got it. In this case, they were using a trumpet.
A trumpet, like a musical instrument.
The very same. And get this, they even painted these ectoplasmic rods with phosphorescent ink so people could see them in the dark manipulating the trumpet.
Whoa, okay. So not only are they hearing a voice from beyond, but they can actually see these ectoplasmic rods moving the trumpet. That's next level.
Oh, right. Try to picture being in that room. The lights are dim. You hear this voice coming through a trumpet, and you know it's supposed to be a spirit communicating. It's wild.
Yeah, it must have been mind-blowing.
Totally. So anyway, Fray Luis, this spirit communicating through the trumpet, starts giving instructions about the surgery.
Wait, what? So the spirit doctor's already done his thing, but now this higher level spirit is weighing in.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting. He tells them that João Pedro is still going to be operating on Don Aioli, but get this, through Paulo.
Through Paulo. Like, Paulo's the surgeon, but he's also acting as a medium for the spirit doctor.
You got it. Fray Luis even said he is a disciplined brother who will serve as a medium for our medical team.
Wow. Talk about a mind-blowing experience.
I know, right? Can you imagine? Here's Paulo, a trained surgeon, being told that he's going to act as a conduit for a spirit doctor. It just completely shatters our understanding of what's possible in medicine.
I bet. It makes you wonder, what other possibilities are there? Could all doctors potentially be mediums, guided by forces beyond our current understanding?
Exactly. And that's exactly the kind of question that led Paulo to write his first book, The Hidden Face of Medicine.
Because there's clearly so much more happening than we can even comprehend.
Right. This idea that there's a whole hidden side to medicine, a world where spirit doctors can operate through physical surgeons. It's mind-boggling.
Definitely makes you think twice about what's really going on in the operating room.
For sure. But this is just the beginning. Wait until you hear about Paulo's ideas on justice and ectoplasm.
Oh boy, I can already tell this is going to be good.
You have no idea. So we're starting to see how these crazy experiences really shaped Paulo's perspective on medicine.
Yeah, like it blew his mind wide open to all these possibilities beyond what we typically think of as, traditional healthcare.
Exactly. But it didn't stop there. So later on, Paulo gets invited to speak at the Brazilian Bar Association.
Okay, the Brazilian Bar Association.
Yeah,
So we're shifting gears from medicine to law now.
we got it. And it's this speaking engagement that sparks a whole new line of thinking for him.
I can see how that would happen. Like going from the world of surgery and healing to the world of law and justice, there's got to be some overlap there, right? Like this whole idea of cause and effect.
You're totally on the right track. So, inspired by this whole experience, he starts writing his next book,
Okay, what's this one called?
Justice and Ectoplasmy. Catchy title, right?
Justice and Ectoplasmy. I like it. It's got a nice ring to it.
Right. And in this book, he explores this, well, pretty radical idea.
Let me guess he thinks we should be using ectoplasm in the courtroom.
You got it. He believes that ectoplasm has the potential to, totally revolutionize our justice system.
Okay, I got to hear this. How does he think that would work? Like, are we going to have ghost lawyers floating around the courtroom?
Not quite. But he does talk about some pretty wild scenarios.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so imagine this. You're in a murder trial, right? And instead of relying on witness testimony or circumstantial evidence, bam, the victim materializes right there in the courtroom to tell their side of the story.
Whoa, hold on.
Yeah.
Like a full-on ghostly apparition pointing fingers at the accused.
Exactly. Or picture this, the murder weapon is missing, no one can find it. But then, using ectoplasm, they teleport the weapon directly into the courtroom as evidence.
Okay, that's straight out of a sci-fi movie. But come on, is this stuff even possible? I mean, it sounds pretty far-fetched.
I know it sounds crazy, right? But Paulo isn't just making this stuff up.
Oh. So he's got some real-life examples to back up these ideas.
He does. He talks about these cases at Lar de Fray Luis, that spiritual center where he did all that research.
Right, the ectoplasm headquarters.
Yeah, something like that. So he says they've actually witnessed materialized weapons there.
Whoa, that's wild.
I know. And he also mentions this fascinating case of Helen Duncan.
Helen Duncan, who's that?
She was a Scottish medium who could communicate with deceased sailors.
Okay, that's cool, but how does she tie into the justice system?
Well, her case is really interesting because she was actually prosecuted under a witchcraft law.
A witchcraft law?
Seriously. Yep. A law from the 16th century. It's crazy, right? They basically accused her of faking her abilities and using them to defraud people.
Wow, talk about outdated laws.
Yeah.
So they were trying to punish her for communicating with spirits.
Pretty much. And her case is a really good example of how our legal systems are just not equipped to deal with these kinds of phenomena.
Yeah, if we can't even agree on whether or not mediums are legit, how are we going to start incorporating ectoplasm into court proceedings?
Exactly. It makes you wonder if our current legal system is even capable of handling a world where we could potentially have spirit witnesses and like ectoplasmic evidence.
Mind-blowing, right.
Right.
Like, how would you even cross-examine a ghost?
I know, right? And it goes even deeper than that. It makes you question our whole concept of justice.
How so?
Well, think about it. If we start accepting the idea of past lives and karma, how does that change our legal judgments and how we sentence people?
Ooh, that's a big one. Are we just punishing the physical body, or are we taking into account the eternal journey of the spirit?
Exactly. It's a huge shift in perspective. And Paolo illustrates this with a real-life case, a pretty chilling one, actually.
Okay, I'm listening.
It involves a pastor who ordered a hit on his wife. Pretty messed up, right?
Yeah, definitely not what you expect from a pastor.
Right. So the three guys who carried out the hit, they all received different sentences. Some even faced the death penalty.
Whoa. Okay, so how does this tie into the whole ectoplasm and justice thing?
Well, it makes you think about the ethics of capital punishment, especially if you believe in the concept of an immortal spirit.
Yeah, if death isn't really the end, does the death penalty even make sense?
Exactly. It becomes a much bigger question than just punishing someone for their actions in this one lifetime.
Heavy stuff. So what happened to those three guys?
Well, one of them was executed by lethal injection.
Okay.
Another one died of cancer in prison. And the third, well, it gets even crazier. They couldn't find a suitable vein for the injection, so they ended up suffocating him with nitrogen gas.
Whoa. That's intense.
Right. And it's details like this that really underscore the harsh realities and almost arbitrary nature of capital punishment. Like, is this really justice?
It makes you question everything,
Yeah.
for sure, especially when you factor in the possibility of an immortal spirit and reincarnation.
Totally. Like, if we're all eternal beings, are those who sentence others to death really any different from the murderers themselves?
Ooh, that's deep.
Right. It's a lot to unpack. But through all of this, one thing's clear. Paolo is deeply passionate about sharing this knowledge, even though he faces a lot of pushback.
Pushback from who?
Well, both the scientific and religious communities.
Figures.
Yeah.
People don't always like it when you challenge their deeply held beliefs.
Exactly. But Paolo draws a parallel between himself and, like, the early Christians.
The early Christians, how so?
Well, they faced persecution for their beliefs, right?
Yeah, definitely. It took a lot of courage to stand up for what they believed in, especially when it went against the grain.
And Paolo sees that same courage in himself. He's not afraid to go against the status quo, even if it means ruffling some feathers.
I respect that.
Yeah.
It takes guts to stand up for what you believe in, especially when you know it's going to make some people uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And one of the things he's most passionate about is bridging the gap between science and religion.
That's a tough one. Those two worlds don't always see eye to eye.
I know, right? But he makes a really interesting point.
What's that?
He uses the example of Jesus' resurrection.
Okay.
He says that even this central Christian miracle needs a logical explanation. He suggests that what we see as miracles might just be like advanced applications of spiritual knowledge that we haven't fully grasped yet.
Interesting. So not necessarily supernatural events, but just really advanced science that we don't understand yet.
Exactly. It's not about choosing sides, but finding common ground between these two seemingly separate worlds.
It's like science can validate and explain what religion has been talking about for centuries, right?
Yeah, totally. And that leads us to one of the biggest questions out there, the problem of suffering.
Ooh, yeah, that's a tough one. How can an all-loving, all-powerful God allow so much pain and injustice in the world?
Right. And Paulo tackles this head on using a really personal example.
What's that?
He talks about his granddaughter who was born with microcephaly because of the Zika virus.
Oh, wow. That's heartbreaking.
It is. And he talks about how he challenged these religious leaders at a symposium, asking them how they would explain this kind of suffering to his granddaughter.
Makes sense. I mean, how do you explain something like that? It just doesn't seem fair.
Exactly. And he felt like their answers were inadequate, like they were missing that crucial why, that drive to truly understand.
Without that why, that innate curiosity, we'd all still be living in caves.
Totally. But when it comes to suffering, simple platitudes often fall short.
Yeah, they don't really address the deeper questions. So what does Paulus suggest? How does he make sense of it all?
Well, he proposes that reincarnation offers a potential answer, a way to understand suffering within this broader context of spiritual evolution.
So maybe it's not just about this one lifetime, but about a soul's journey over multiple lifetimes.
Exactly. It's like maybe these challenges we face are opportunities for growth, for learning and evolving over time.
Makes you think. Okay, so we've talked about Paolo's ideas on medicine and justice, but what about his personal journey? Did he always believe in this stuff?
That's a good question. And it's actually a pretty incredible story. He talks about waiting 28 years to finally be invited to observe the spiritual healings at Lar de Fray Luis.
Wow, 28 years. Talk about patience.
Right. Can you imagine waiting that long for something you're so passionate about?
I can barely wait for my coffee to brew in the morning.
Uh,
But seriously, that's incredible. So what happened when he finally got to observe these healings? Was it everything he hoped for?
oh, he was blown away. He talks about seeing spirit doctors materializing, teleporting, using the same medical terminology he uses in his practice.
No way. Like as if they went to the same med school.
He even points out that the medium in these sessions was an automobile mechanic.
An automobile mechanic. So there's no way he could have known all that medical jargon.
Exactly. It's these little details that make these accounts so compelling. And Paulo was just floored by what he saw. He even said he felt like he was going to shift the axis of the earth after witnessing these things.
That's awesome. You can really feel his passion and enthusiasm.
Totally. And he emphasizes that if more doctors were exposed to this reality, it could completely revolutionize how we approach healing.
Imagine a world where the spiritual and physical dimensions of healing are fully integrated. That would be amazing.
Right. It's a pretty wild thought. But Paula's journey wasn't all sunshine and roses. He also talks about some pretty challenging experiences.
Like what?
Well, for example, he had this really unsettling experience trying to get back to Rio from Uberaba. His flight was canceled, and he ended up having to take a 10-and-a-half-hour taxi ride.
Oof, that's rough.
Yeah.
Why was it so unsettling?
He describes this feeling of foreboding as he boarded the plane, like there was a dark cloud around it.
Ooh, spooky. Do you think it was more than just a bad feeling?
He actually wonders if something was trying to prevent him from launching justice and ectoplasmy.
Interesting. It's like there were these unseen forces at play testing his resolve.
Right. And on top of that, he mentions receiving a telepathic message from his professor.
A telepathic message? From his professor?
Yep. And the message was a warning. His professor told him that his work was disturbing a lot of people.
Well, yeah, I can see how that would happen. These are some pretty radical ideas he's talking about.
But it's kind of like a badge of honor when you're challenging deeply ingrained beliefs. It shows that you're really onto something.
I agree. If you're not shaking things up a bit, are you really making a difference?
Exactly. And at the end of the day, that's what Paulo is all about, sharing his truth and helping humanity evolve toward a higher understanding of itself and the universe.
It's a noble mission. And it sounds like he's faced a lot of adversity along the way.
He has. He talks about witnessing the abuse of power, especially in government and healthcare.
Yeah, sadly, that's not uncommon.
I know. But despite the darkness he's seen, he still believes that good will prevail.
That's inspiring. It's easy to get discouraged when you see so much negativity in the world, but it's important to hold on to hope.
Absolutely. And Paulo reminds us that we're not off the hook just because we believe in good. We still have to make conscious choices.
Because our actions have consequences.
Exactly. He emphasizes that we're all immortal, and our actions have repercussions that extend beyond this lifetime.
Karma, basically.
Yep. And he even suggests that those who commit truly egregious acts might not be able to reincarnate on Earth as the planet evolves toward a more regenerated state.
Interesting. So Earth is becoming this more evolved place, and only those who have reached a certain level of spiritual maturity will be able to reincarnate here.
That's his idea. And to really drive this point home, he tells this chilling story about the materialization of a medieval executioner at Lar de Fray Luis.
Whoa, a medieval executioner.
Yeah. And this guy was trapped in a state of torment, unable to separate from his executioner's garb.
Like his clothes were literally fused to his spirit.
Well, he talks about the paraspirit, which is like a spiritual blueprint.
Right. The paraspirit. I've heard of that.
So his executioner's garb had basically fused to his paraspirit as a thought form. They were even able to photograph him, and the terror on his face was palpable.
Man, imagine carrying the weight of all those executions with you, the remorse and suffering.
It's a stark reminder that our actions create these energetic imprints that can have lasting effects.
Heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And I bet Paulo ties this back to modern-day abuses of power, right?
He does. In a moment that'll send chills down your spine, he says, but there are other ways to behead someone.
Whoa, that's powerful.
Right. It's a statement about how violence can take many forms and how the abuse of power can be just as devastating as a physical act.
It's a call to be mindful of how we wield our power, whatever form it may take.
Exactly. And he leaves us with this powerful message: we are all immortal, and we can't escape the consequences of our actions. Everything we do, every choice we make, shapes our eternal journey.
It's a call to live consciously, ethically, and to strive to make choices that are in alignment with our highest values.
Beautifully put. But Paulo doesn't just present these ideas in this abstract way. He brings them to life with personal anecdotes.
Mm. Like what?
Well, he talks about his trip to Italy, which he describes as a kind of pilgrimage.
A pilgrimage. That sounds interesting. What was he doing in Italy?
He was invited to speak about the hidden face of medicine in various cities.
Okay, so spreading the word about his work.
Exactly. And one of the places he visited was Assisi, the city of St. Francis. He talks about walking the same paths that Francis walked over 1,000 years ago.
Wow, that must have been powerful. To feel that connection to such a spiritual figure.
He describes feeling this tangible spiritual presence that still permeates the city, and he sees a parallel between Francis's impact and the potential of Spiritism to spread its message.
Interesting. So both figures challenging the status quo and offering a new way of seeing the world.
Right. But not everything on his trip was so serene. He had a pretty unsettling experience trying to get back to Rio from Uberaba.
Uberaba, isn't that where Larda Fray Luis is?
Yep, the very same. So his flight got canceled, and he ended up having to take this, 10.5-hour taxi ride.
Ugh, I hate when that happens. But why was it so unsettling?
He describes feeling this sense of foreboding as he was boarding the plane, sensing this dark cloud around it. And later, he wondered if something was trying to prevent him from launching Justice and Ectoplasmia.
Interesting. It's like those unseen forces were at it again, trying to throw him off course.
Right. And to make things even weirder, he mentions receiving another telepathic message, this time from his professor.
Another telepathic message. What did this one say?
It was a warning, basically. His professor told him that his work was disturbing a lot of people.
Well, yeah, I can see how talking about ectoplasm and spirit doctors might ruffle some feathers.
For sure. But it's that willingness to push boundaries, to challenge conventional thinking, that makes Paulo such a compelling figure.
I agree. He's not afraid to ask the tough questions and explore the unknown, even if it makes people uncomfortable.
And ultimately, that's what this depth dive is all about, right? Expanding our awareness and pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible.
Exactly. And Paulo's story is a perfect example of how one person can make a difference, even if it means facing opposition and challenges along the way.
So remember that question we posed at the beginning: could understanding ectoplasm and past lives revolutionize our concept of justice?
Right, that was a big one. So what's Paulo's take on it?
He firmly believes the answer is yes.
He does. Okay, I'm intrigued.
He even envisions a future where judges might be, get this, physical mediums?
Whoa, hold on. Like judges who can channel spirits to help them make legal decisions? That's next level. Yeah.
I know, right? But he backs it up with his own experience of receiving a telepathic message during a surgery at Fray Luis. It makes you wonder, could intuition and spiritual insight become just as valued as logic and reason in the courtroom?
It's a fascinating thought. Like, are we moving towards a justice system that takes into account not just the facts of a case, but also the spiritual implications?
Exactly. And Paulo sees Spiritism as playing a key role in this integration of science and spirituality.
Spiritism? How so?
Well, with its emphasis on reason, observation, and the scientific study of mediumship, it provides a framework for understanding the spiritual dimension in a way that's both compelling and accessible.
So not just blind faith, but a systematic approach to understanding these phenomena.
Exactly. And he points out that Spiritism is still relatively young, only 168 years old compared to Christianity's 2,000-year history.
So it's still got a lot of room to grow and evolve.
Right. Imagine where we might be in another 2,000 years if we continue to explore and embrace these ideas. It's mind-boggling.
It is. And Paulo's work is a testament to the power of one person to really push the boundaries and open up new possibilities.
He's a true pioneer, paving the way for a future where the lines between science and spirituality might blur, and where our understanding of justice, healing, and even the human experience itself could be radically transformed.
And he does it all with this infectious enthusiasm and genuine desire to help humanity evolve.
Absolutely. He reminds us that we're all eternal learners on this never-ending journey of discovery and growth.
He even leaves us with a prayer, asking for strength and guidance as we navigate the complexities of life.
It's a reminder that we're not alone in this journey. We have spiritual support to help us along the way.
And that ultimately we're all connected, part of this larger human family striving toward a more enlightened future.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to ask you, How has all of this resonated with you? We've covered a lot of ground, from spirit surgeries and teleporting weapons to the ethics of capital punishment and the problem of suffering.
We've explored the potential of ectoplasm to revolutionize the justice system, the importance of integrating science and religion, and the power of scientific curiosity to drive human progress.
We've delved into Paulo's personal journey, his unwavering faith, and his passionate commitment to sharing these truths with the world. We've laughed, we've been challenged, and hopefully we've expanded our understanding of what's possible.
This deep dive is just the beginning, a springboard for further exploration. It's about questioning assumptions and seeking a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe,
Because, as Paulo reminds us, we're all eternal learners.
constantly evolving and discovering.
Now, before we move on, I have to ask. You mentioned that Paulo might have an 11th book in the works.
He did hint at a potential title, The Incredible Mediumship of Physical Effects. And knowing Paulo, I wouldn't be surprised if we see it sooner rather than later.
Well, consider me officially intrigued. And listeners, if you're as captivated by Paulo's story as we are, stay tuned. We might just have to do another deep dive with him in the future.
Because let's face it, there's still so much more to explore.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, keep questioning, keep seeking, and keep that flame of curiosity burning bright.
You never know what incredible discoveries might be just around the corner.
We'll be back soon with part 3, where we'll explore the potential for miracles and the future of human potential. Until then, keep diving deep. Welcome back for the final part of our deep dive with Paulo, and man, where do we even begin after all that?
I know, right? It's a lot to process.
So much to unpack.
Yeah. But as we wrap up, there's one question that just keeps swirling in my mind.
Ooh, what's that?
Well, you know how Paulo believes that we could potentially cure blindness using ectoplasm?
Right, like teleporting cells from the spiritual eye to the physical eye.
Exactly.
Pretty wild stuff.
Yeah, it really is. But it makes me wonder what other seemingly impossible feats might actually be within our reach.
Right, like if we can cure blindness with ectoplasm, what else could we do?
Exactly. Could we, regenerate limbs, reverse the effects
Yeah.
of aging, cure diseases that are currently considered incurable?
It's mind-blowing to think about.
Totally. And what's even more fascinating is that Paulo doesn't believe in miracles in, the traditional sense.
Right, he's not talking about supernatural events.
Yeah, he sees these possibilities as a matter of scientific understanding.
Like, if we could just figure out how to work with these spiritual energies, we could unlock all sorts of incredible abilities.
Exactly. And he even uses the example of Jesus healing the blind man with mud made from his saliva.
Oh, right. I remember that story.
Yeah, so Paulo suggests that what Jesus was actually expelling was ectoplasm, which he then used to repair the damaged cells in the man's eyes.
So not a miracle, but a demonstration of advanced knowledge and skill.
Exactly. Which begs the question, if we could unlock those same abilities today, what could we accomplish?
It's both exciting and a little bit daunting to think about.
For sure. It's like the only limits are our own understanding and willingness to explore these uncharted territories.
Well said. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what are your final thoughts? What stands out to you the most from Paulo's story and his ideas?
That's a tough one. There's just so much to take away from this conversation, but for me, I think what really resonates is this constant interplay between science and spirituality.
Yeah, it's like he's bridging the gap between these two worlds that are often seen as being at odds with each other.
Exactly. He's encouraging us to approach these topics with both a scientific mindset and a sense of wonder.
And to never stop questioning, to always be open to new possibilities.
Absolutely. Because we're all eternal learners, right?
Right. Always growing, always evolving. Well, this has been an absolutely incredible journey, exploring the world of Paulo, a man who truly embodies the spirit of curiosity, courage, and compassion.
He's shown us that the pursuit of truth can lead down some pretty unexpected paths.
And that challenging our beliefs and expanding our understanding of ourselves and the world around us can be an incredibly rewarding experience.
For sure. And perhaps the most profound takeaway from all of this is that we are all immortal spirits, capable of extraordinary things.
But with those abilities comes a responsibility.
A responsibility to use our gifts for good, to make choices that align with our highest values.
And to create a positive impact on the world.
Beautifully said. So as you go about your day, remember to approach life with a sense of wonder, an openness to the unknown, and that all-important spark of curiosity.
Because you never know what incredible adventures or mind-blowing discoveries might be waiting for you just around the corner.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
And that's a wrap on another deep dive. Thanks for joining us.